Action, you see, feeds and strengthens confidence. Inaction, on the other hand, in all of its many forms, feeds fear. I've heard it from actors, newscasters, professional athletes, even paratroopers. It's the waiting. It's the anticipation of a big event. That's the hard part. Once the action starts, nervousness and fear dissipate. But the longer the action is postponed, the greater the tension and fear become. So, if you're dreading making a certain phone call, make it, and the dread will disappear. If you're afraid of confronting a problem with your superior, don't put it off. That will only increase your anxiety. Discuss it, act on it, and discover how those worries are conquered. Make this a resolution. Build your confidence and destroy your fear through positive action.
Someone once said that the most difficult problem in life is getting out of a warm bed into a cold room. That's a difficulty a lot of people face. The longer you lie there thinking how unpleasant it will be to get up, the more difficult getting up becomes. This is another case where a quick injection of action is needed. Writers often talk about writer's block, the inability to get started. But the writer who waits for inspiration to come will probably be waiting for a very long time, may never even get a word on paper. Salesmen have frequently noticed that the hardest call to make is the first one of the day, the one that gets them started. But until the salesman takes the plunge, he or she is not a salesman at all. They're just a person thinking about being a salesman. But listen, here's a writer with an idea about getting started.
When I've got deadlines to meet, I simply can't wait for the spirit to move me. So I use what's called a mind force technique. I make myself sit down at my desk, then I just pick up a pencil or a pen or whatever, and I just go through the mechanical motions of writing. Sometimes I just doodle, sometimes I just, the idea is just to get my fingers and arms in motion. If there's a particular subject I'm writing on, I'll start writing anything at all that I can think of about that subject. Pretty soon, without being conscious of the transition, my mind gets on the right track and I just go from there.
People who get things done in this world don't wait for the spirit to move them. They move the spirit. Try these two exercises and see for yourself. First, use this mechanical starting method to accomplish simple but unpleasant business or household chores. Rather than thinking about the task, just jump right in and start doing it without any deliberation. Washing dishes, for example, or filing those papers at work. Don't even let yourself think about it. Just start doing it. That's the most effective way to handle these chores. Second, once you've done a few chores this way, use the mechanical method to create ideas, map out plans, solve problems, and do other work that requires top mental performance. One good way to get going on big projects is with a very inexpensive investment, a pencil and paper. With these two tools, you can tie your mind to a problem. When you write a thought on paper, your full attention is automatically focused on that thought. That's because the mind is not designed to think one thought and write another at the same time. And when you write on paper, you write on your mind, too. Tests prove conclusively that you remember something much longer and much more exactly when you write it down on paper. In addition, once you master this pencil and paper technique for concentration, you can think in noisy and distracting situations. When you want to think, just start writing or doodling or diagramming. It's an excellent way to move your spirit.
But when you get in your head, what does that really mean? It means you're believing the most limiting thoughts. And you have to remember, we all have a 2-million-year-old brain. And it's not designed to make you happy, it's designed to make you survive. So it's always looking for what's wrong. Remember we played the game Look for Brown, and you all saw beige shit and called it brown just to feel successful? I said look for red, you saw burgundy, you called it red, so you could get more scores. Whatever you're looking for, seek and ye shall what? Find. It says that in a very good book called The Good Book. And you don't have to be religious to understand this, that this is a fact of life. So if you and I are going to really take things to a different level, we got to see what can mess it up. So the mind could mess it up, but what aspect of the mind? What makes us start to believe those thoughts? What's the emotion that messes us up? What is it? It's absolutely fear. But there's more than this. Every day of our lives, we live in a world that is incredibly complex. It is no more stressful than World War II, when none of us in this room probably remember that time, but it looked like democracy was disappearing and the Germans were going to win at one stage. That's stressful. Being in a foxhole is stressful. You're not making as much money as you want, or being a little overweight, or someone calling you names online. That shit is not stressful. We're making it stressful. We've lost perspective. Who's with me on this? Say I. So what's really useful, I think, today is for us to figure out what messes us up. And one of the biggest things that messes us up is expectation, right? What did we say the other day? Trade your expectations for appreciation and your whole life changes. Because when you're expecting things and it doesn't happen, you get upset. So that first day also was all about, what if you lived your life and you made a decision? And the decision was, life is too short to suffer. It's too short to be stressed, pissed off, fearful, worried. Who's with me on this? But our minds, our survival software is always looking for what's wrong. Our job is to create the happiness. And the only way you do that is you draw a line in the sand and say, I'm not going to suffer. I'm going to be honest. If I start to feel that stress, I'm going to breathe, and I'm going to realize we're the only creatures on the planet that can think a thought and become angry. Think a thought and become playful. Think a thought and be worried. Think a thought and feel loved. That's why we can change how fast? But you have to take control and train this brain. If you don't train this brain, it'll use you instead of you using it. You have to identify with your heart or your soul or your spirit instead of the brain. As I said, in China, the heart is the emperor. It is the highest energy. It's the thing that is worshipped, because when you were born, there was no brain. Your heart started beating and there wasn't a brain in you as a baby.